All right, welcome friends. We see you trickling in. Thank you for being here tonight and, experimenting with a Saturday night program. We haven't done these yet, so I have been wanting to do this even pre-pandemic, after hours at the library. So I guess it will be after hours virtual at the library. So grab your after hour drink. Mine is Earl Grey because I am still on city time, but welcome. And we'll just give it a few more seconds for more folks to filter in. And we are so happy to have you here. I'm going to spiel off a couple of library announcements while we get settled in, including that tonight you are here for the celebration of Miguel Algarín. And we are so happy you joined us. And this is a partnership with our friends at the Before Columbus Foundation. San Francisco Public Library would like to acknowledge that we are in the unceded land of the Ohlone tribal people and acknowledge the many Ramaytush Ohlone tribal groups and families as the rightful stewards in the lands in which we work, reside, where our servers live, where all of us are, well, not all of us, but where a few of us are here in the room today standing and sleeping our heads. So we want to encourage everyone to learn more about land rights, first-person culture, and you can put in the chat box what territory you're coming to us from. And they put a link in the chat box that has all sorts of information about first-person culture. It will also have information about tonight's event and anything that comes up, any books, anything that comes up tonight, I will also add that to the document and continually share that to you in the chat box. We also want to acknowledge the painful situation this country remains in politically, and the uprising of white supremacy again, the consistent police brutality, and know that the library is not a neutral institution, and we stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement and support collective action to end structural, systemic, and institutional racism. We are doing this by working on our own racial equity work in the library, and that I can share with you too, is put it in this doc. All sorts of great reading lists about being an anti-racist and all sorts of great things about being better humans and getting it together. So announcements from the library, we have our 16th One City, One Book, where we try to get all of the city to read the same book. Excited to announce Chanel Miller, Know My Name, and this is her story of sexual assault on the Stanford campus and how she had to deal with the court systems. Very powerful book. I encourage you all to check it out from your library. We have library services to go, or you can get it from your favorite bookstore. This month's January, February bi-monthly read is The Old Drift by Namwali Serpell. Again, pick that up at your local bookstore or library to go. Our two picks for this month are Borderland Books and Marcus Books in Oakland. We love bookstores, hashtag, if you haven't seen it, all about supporting Bay Area books. We have kicked off our more than a month Black Heritage Cultural and Heritage Celebration, which started January 2nd for us and will run all the way through February and all year round. I really want to encourage lots of people to come out to this. This is the first time we've done a storytelling for adults, and Diane is a Grammy award-winning storyteller, and she'll be accompanied by Mr. Eric Pearson. So please come out and support this one. And I had a pleasure of having a meeting with her in person, and it is going to be so worth it. So please come around for that. Lots of art, lots of authors. Miss Melissa Valentine, a Oakland native, has written a book, so come check her out. And I am going to now turn it over to my friend Justin Demong from the Before Columbus Foundation, and happy to work with you again, Justin. The Before Columbus Foundation was founded in 1976 by Ishmael Reed, and they are behind the American Book Awards, which has been hosted at SFPL for quite a long time, and I hope we continue to do that. So I will now turn it over to Justin.
Thank you so much, Anissa. And again, my name is Justin Demong. I'm the chairman of the board of directors of the Before Columbus Foundation, and would like to welcome all of you this evening to our celebration of the poet Miguel Algarín. This evening, we are joined by playwright, writer, and president of the Before Columbus Foundation, Wajahat Ali, poet Nancy Mercado, also a member of the Before Columbus Foundation's board of directors, the theater director and impresario of the Nuyorican Poets Café as well, Rome Neal, the Before Columbus Foundation founder, along with Victor Hernandez Cruz, Ishmael Reed, and the visual artist, Nitza Tufiño. Before we get started, I will mention that you can visit us on the internet at beforecolumbusfoundation.com. Well, I encourage all of you to support the Before Columbus Foundation and our many programs, including the American Book Award, where you can find the donation button on our website, and include yourself in our ongoing efforts to revive, resuscitate, and excavate images of our nation and its many peoples that are in harmony and in sustenance with the true lives of those who live here. Miguel Algarín was certainly one of those people who helped organize and bring about that vision. He won the American Book Award 3 times, once in 1981 for his collection On Call, again in 1986 for Times Now, and more recently in 2009 for Lifetime Achievement. The month that Miguel Algarín moved on to the ancestors, there were 4,467 children crossing the southern border alone who were arrested, detained, and imprisoned by the United States in a set of camps that are correctly described by historians in the United States and elsewhere as concentration camps. The month previous, that number was 4,661. In the first 5 days of this year, that number is 288. I mention this because the role of poetry and theater, particularly in the last 3 days, has been amplified in terms of the part that it can play in our civic culture, in our expression of consciousness and understanding each other. But this extraordinary, ordinary fact of these thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of children, in fact, being held in these camps remains something that has been sequestered or suppressed in the international and American news media. It is up to the artist as cultural activist, as cultural organizer, of which again Miguel was an exemplar, to bring this knowledge to the people, to implement some kind of constructive change to end this extraordinary level of violence. Miguel Algarín's work spoke with an extraordinary power of emotional authority that never left behind his sense of reality. And he was such an artist to bring about the understanding of what can be done and what is possible in the future to alleviate this extraordinary situation of violence that we find ourselves in as a nation. When one looks back into the history of this country, even as recently as the 20th century, one doesn't discover Chicago in the 1940s and 50s through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. One looks to the work of Gwendolyn Brooks, of Nelson Algren, of Richard Wright. When one looks to understand the meaning of what it meant to be Nuyorican, to live in New York at all, throughout the decades preceding this one looks to understand the work of Miguel Algarín. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We have some of Miguel's closest collaborators, lifetime friends, and those who worked with him throughout his efforts as a poet, as a man, as an artist, and as someone who brought a tremendous sense of joy and becoming to our world. So with that in mind, I welcome again the president of the Before Columbus Foundation, Wajahat Ali.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Justin, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you to San Francisco Public Library and everyone from the Before Columbus Foundation for co-hosting and co-sponsoring this celebration of the Titan known as Miguel Algarín. I will always miss him and his solicited and unsolicited commentary given to anyone who entered the stage in his house. I do not want to bore anyone. Instead, I just want to share some stories for those of you who might not have known Miguel or do know Miguel. Maybe this will put a smile on our face as we remember the type of man he was. First and foremost, let us not kid ourselves. Miguel Algarín was a 3-time winner of the American Book Awards given out by the Before Columbus Foundation, and he rightfully earned his Lifetime Achievement Award given by the Before Columbus Foundation. And we're no slouches, ladies and gentlemen. We had MacArthur Genius winners, we got Pulitzer winners, we got the Poet Laureate of America. As part of our board, we have the Booker Prize winner. We have scholars, journalists, poets. And so we decided, every year we decide to give out the American Book Awards, and we say, all right, who should receive this prestigious award? And I remember one year when Miguel's name was up, no contest. The man had earned it, he deserved it. And like someone mentioned Miguel, like it's his. And, you know, they say that, you know, a house oftentimes represents the spirit of the owner. Sometimes it is the extension of the person, oftentimes a representative of the individual itself. And for those of you who are lucky enough to have ever entered the Nuyorican Poets Café in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, you would have embraced and encountered the spirit of Miguel Algarín. Open-hearted, generous, vibrant, loud, messy, and I say that as a compliment, resourceful, because you'll find spaces where people are rehearsing. You're like, I didn't even know there was an attic. And you'll go down in the back and you'll see an actor performing. I'm like, there's space there. I think, isn't that where you keep like the rice? They're like, yeah, but right now we're gonna keep an actor there instead of the rice. And I say all this because some of my fondest memories are at the Nuyorican Poets Café. And oftentimes people, you know, we sit there and ask ourselves, well, what's this word multiculturalism and poetry and art? You know, maybe you should just study coding. Maybe you should just go and become a doctor. Maybe just go into STEM. Do we really need this stuff? Does it really matter? There's 7 billion people. There's climate change. There's income inequality. There's a rise of white nationalism. Why do we need these kids, these brown and black kids who didn't become doctors and engineers? Why should we invest in them? And I want to give you a short, quick story about the importance of having a champion of multiculturalism, of having a champion of young voices who are often unheard, or of having a champion of a mentor, of a teacher who can guide and elevate those voices and give them a home where they can live and breathe. And this is a personal story. Many years ago, when I was a young man and had more hair on my head, I wrote this play, The Domestic Crusaders. I was a 21-year-old senior at UC Berkeley, and my teacher happened to meet Ishmael Reed, who is on the thumbnail right here. Ishmael is not Muslim or Pakistani like myself, and it was actually a short story class, and he said, you shouldn't waste your time being a short story writer. You're actually a playwright. You don't know it. You're good with dialogue and characters. And this was 3 weeks after the 9/11 terror attack, which has unleashed the unending war on terror, which was unleashed against brown and black people around the world, but now has revisited the United States of America. If you don't believe me, you should pay attention to what happened in the summer during the Black Lives Matter protests as unmarked vehicles grabbed white suburban moms in Portland. All right. So that war on terror came home. But at that time, I was a young kid, trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. Just turned 21. 9/11 just happened. I'm Muslim. Everyone's freaking out. The country's going crazy. And Ishmael said, I'm a black man. They've been coming after my people for 400 years. The way we fight back is through art and culture and storytelling. That's one thing they haven't been able to take away from us. I think you guys are going to get hazed for the next 10 years. They've been hazing us for 400 years. So I haven't read a story about Muslims and Pakistanis. I just see you guys being depicted as terrorists. You should write me a story about what are you again? Muslim, Pakistani? Yeah. Write me you ever read Fences or Death of a Salesman? I said, yeah. Write me a play like that. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a short story writing class. I'm 20. Please, let me just write some short stories. He goes, no. Just don't waste your time. Give me 20 pages of a play. It'll be fine. All right, come back in 2 months or I'll fail you. Okay, bye. That ended up being the beginning of the Domestic Crusaders, the play that we wrote about a family, a Muslim Pakistani American family. And Ishmael, after I graduated, kept asking me for 5 more pages. Started for my 21st birthday, finished it for my 23rd birthday. The play became the Domestic Crusaders. This was 2003, 2004, all right? The country was so insane at that time that if you remember the Dixie Chicks, who have now renamed themselves the Chicks, Natalie Maines, the lead singer, said one comment against George W. Bush. She goes, I'm offended that George W. Bush is from Texas. Bye, y'all. That's all she said. America lost its mind. They canceled the Dixie Chicks. They took tractors over her CDs. If you guys are a millennial, us old timers used to listen to something called CDs. They took tractors over their CDs. They burned their CDs. This is the Dixie Chicks, the whitest women on earth, blonde, harmless. They're singing songs. And meanwhile, we're writing a play called The Domestic Crusaders. So the rest of us are like, man, if this is what America does to the Dixie Chicks, what are they going to do to the rest of us? And I remember that play, we produced it on our own. We did it locally. We did it at the Berkeley Rep. We did the San Jose University Theater. We proved ourselves. We did it grassroots. We made a profit. Nobody would touch the play. They said, no one wants to see a brown family. How is this relatable to the mainstream? None of these people are terrorists. We want something sexy like honor killing or terrorists. We got rejected across the board. You fast forward to 2008, America lost its mind temporarily, and I thought they're actually going to elect a black man, Barack Hussein Obama, which a majority of this country at that time for a brief moment thought was Muslim. I'm like, this is insane. Maybe this is the time to bring back the Domestic Crusaders. And Ishmael at this time and Carla Blank, his partner and collaborator who became the director and dramaturge of the play, said, yeah, maybe we should try it this time. Let's try it in New York. And Ishmael said, there's one spot that I think might give you a shot. It's the Nuyorican Poets Café. I'm a California kid, so I'd never been to New York before then. So I said, if anyone will give us a house, I will go meet them. It's 2008. We're both in New York, me, Carla, and Ishmael at the same time. Ishmael does a meeting with Rome Neal. And he says, go watch and pitch it to Rome, who at that time was the artistic director. Rome says, all right, well, it seems like a good play, but I don't know if there's an audience for Pakistanis or Muslims. If they show up, fantastic. But you're going to have to get this amount of money and this amount of insurance money. And if you get like $25,000, we'll give you the space for 5 weeks. So I said, I'm going to get you the money. Had no idea how I was going to get the money. All right. I'm sitting in California. I'm broke. I'm like, how am I going to raise $25,000? We raised the money. We decided to premiere it, the play, The Domestic Crusaders, on 9/11/2009. I remember we get there in August to rehearse. Carla's there. I'm there. We're just trying to like map out the scene. And then there's a guy sitting at the bar drinking during the rehearsals, just like talking to my actors as they're trying to concentrate. And, I'm new at the Nuyorican, so I'm like, who's this guy kind of quasi yelling at my actors and like unsolicited giving them direction? And then I was about to say something and Carla's like, that's Miguel. He's the founder and owner. And then Rome's like, hey, Miguel does this all the time. So if this is going to be a problem, the next 2 months are going to be rough. But if he likes the play, this is going to be really good for you. If he doesn't like the play, he will let you know during the actual performances. So now I'm like, I gotta freaking put this play on. I gotta find money. I have to do publicity, and I gotta worry about this guy I've never met, Miguel Algarín, drinking, praying to God. If he doesn't like my play, I'm literally gonna have my own troll. I'm going to have my own troll at every performance. And so that's where we met Miguel. And I remember the first time Miguel actually saw the play, and this is Ishmael Reed will remember this, Rome will remember this. We decided to do a soft premiere at the Nuyorican a day before the premiere on 9/10 to celebrate Miguel's birthday. You remember that, Rome? And we're going to do a big potluck. And Miguel brought all of his friends, and some of these friends are Ishmael Reed, Amiri Baraka, right? So these are the friends. And they're like, you're going to premiere this play in front of these luminaries of New York who are Miguel's friends. Like, and there's going to be a big potluck. And after the potluck, it's going to be your play. And it's Miguel's birthday. So you better be good. And I remember my mom came, and my mom, I'm like, Ummi, you know, maybe we can win them over. You make really good goat biryani. Maybe you can find a way to make goat biryani. He goes, I'm here from California. Where am I going to make goat biryani? And I remember Pope used to be the stage manager. So Pope took my mom to a small kitchen in Queens where she ended up making biryani for like 100 people. She goes, I've never made biryani for 100 people in 3 hours in someone else's kitchen. Let's just pray it works out. And so my mom's goat biryani ended up being the most popular dish. It got cleaned out, if you remember, Rome and Ishmael. They were like, what's this dish? This dish is amazing. Miguel loved it. I'm like, already a win. Then everyone ate. And I'm like, okay, we got to now premiere this play in front of Miguel and his friends for his birthday. I told the cast, and I'm like, by the way, not to get you freaked out, Amiri Baraka's in there, and so is Miguel Algarín, and so is Ishmael. Now they're freaking out, right? So I'm like, you better put on the play of your life. So they do it. They do the play, and throughout the entire play, every time that I had intended someone to laugh, Miguel laughed. And every time I intended someone to say, stay quiet, Miguel stayed quiet. And Miguel, for those who've been in Nuyorican, just kept lobbing out encouragement. And once I heard Miguel's voice, I'm like, we got this. And throughout the entire run, Miguel ended up always being like, he was proud of the play. Like, he's like, I've never had these many Pakistanis in my house before. Who knew that Pakistanis like plays? And he's like, tell my mom to make more goat biryani. And he gave these wonderful recommendations. And he one time said something with it, always stayed with me. He goes, for your next play, remember, silence is also powerful. Silence. Because it was a garrulous play. And he goes, next time, try to play with silence. You might be really good with that as well. And I remember he ended up becoming a supporter. And I remember that house, the Nuyorican Poets Café, became the only place that would give my play a shot. Rome Neal said after 5 weeks, we broke the box office records of the Nuyorican at that time. He said, my only regret was we didn't add it for another 5 weeks. We got a New York Times review. We got Wall Street Journal. We got NBC. We got like pretty much fantastic coverage. And I remember we were sustained on just this good-spirited camaraderie and Rome Neal's famous banana pudding that made us all gain 7 pounds after 2 months. And I remember that spirit of the Nuyorican, the fact that they, quote unquote, discovered talent, gave talent a home. You know, people forget that the Nuyorican was where slam poetry, which was once mocked and ridiculed, that's the home of slam poetry, the Nuyorican Poets Café. People also think, oh, it's where all the brown and black people go who are rejected by Broadway. Nope, a lot of people go there because Broadway didn't care to cast us or read our stories. And from the Nuyorican Poets Café, from Miguel's home, screenplays have been produced, movies have been made, poets have been launched, all right, careers have been launched because he had the ear and the eye to see the talent that was often ignored. And he said, you too belong in the mainstream. And one thing I'll say, I'll end on this, I just want to keep it 10 minutes, is that play, Domestic Crusaders, that opened proudly on 9/11/2009 off Broadway on the Nuyorican Poets Café, got published the next year in 2010 by McSweeney's. And I was just informed by McSweeney's proactively that they are republishing that play in 2021. And the plays that were competing with us on Broadway, everybody has forgotten. And so that's the spirit of Miguel Algarín. That's the spirit of the Nuyorican Poets Café. And when I heard he had passed away, there was I'm at that age right now, 40, where both death and birth come at waves. And it's an interesting period in your life. And you see a lot of your mentors get older and pass. And there was just a sadness that I had, but it was replaced with a memory. And I think when you think of someone, that instinctual emotional response you have captures the feeling, right? And I had warmth. I had like, it was sadness, but also warmth and joy. And I was just very grateful. I'm like, man, Miguel and Nuyorican took a shot and gave this, at that time, broke 28-year-old California boy and his play a chance. And if it wasn't for these guys who gave my play a home, maybe I wouldn't be here speaking to you right now. So it gives me an opportunity to also remember that we're in the footsteps of our ancestors and our elders. No one does it by themselves. And Miguel, what he created with Rome and others at the Nuyorican is an extension of that generous spirit. And let's not forget that this man was no slouch. He was also a scholar of Shakespeare. So anyone who says that Miguel, oh, he didn't know Western literature, the man was a scholar of Shakespeare who taught Shakespeare at Rutgers University and then entertained the rest of us in his home, literally, which then became the Nuyorican. So with that, I honor Miguel, and I thank everyone who has kept that legacy alive and is keeping that legacy alive. And if you do support that legacy, please also support the Nuyorican Poets Café, which is a nonprofit, and also the Before Columbus Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization. You get a tax-deductible refund at the end of the year. So if you're into this, support us, please. And it is my honor to introduce the man whose banana pudding I really miss. And I hope, inshallah, as we say, after the pandemic ends and we all survive it, that we can all go back to the Nuyorican and have his banana pudding. It's Rome Neal. When I knew him, he was the artistic director, but now he's moved on up and is the chair of the board. He hosts the weekly Banana Pudding Jazz Fest. Now it's the virtual Jazz Fest. He's an actor. The man has channeled Monk more than anyone else, perhaps better even than Monk himself. And he's also the proud father of Leah Neal, an Olympic swimmer for the United States of America. Rome Neal.
Whoa. Thank you, Wajah. Thank you so very much, my brother. He's right about the play and the Nuyorican Poets Cafe and all that wonderful energy that Miguel brings to the space and still brings to the space, even though he's not with us in the physical form. His spirit will never leave the Nuyorican Poets Cafe because, you know, it's an energy that has been with us for over 40 years now. I came to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe as a young budding actor for a play that Miguel was directing entitled Nuyorican Nights, which was written by Miguel Piñero. And when I came into the space, I came from Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, to the Lower East Side, and all I knew about my Puerto Rican brothers was the bodega that was on the block, on the corner. And I walked on into the Nuyorican Poets Cafe and I was enlightened by all these elitists, literal giants, Miguel Algarín, Miguel Piñero, but they were still on the edge. It was no energy of being, I'm a professor at Rutgers and I'm elitist. No, they were down to earth, on the edge, and like you say, they have the bottle of beer on the side, drinking it and talking much trash to the audience who came out to see what was ever going on at the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. So I was, dumbfounded, taken into all this energy, and as a young actor, I would come to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe on my roller skates and just became a part of the family. That play really just turned me on to the cafe some 30, 40 years ago. And I got the opportunity to actually do something that I didn't even know I was doing. Miguel cast me as the lead actor to play the character of Miguel Piñero, which I had no idea what I was doing. And but he, talking about multiculturalism, he had the umptions to say, hey, I'm going to put this brother and make him my Miguel Piñero character in this play. And he did. I didn't stay that character for long because I didn't know what I was doing, but he thought I did. And Ronaldo Pavone took on the character and took it to another level when Joe Papp came into the house and saw Ronaldo Pavone and mentored him at the Public Theater to do a play that he had written called Cuba and his teddy bear that eventually went to Broadway with Ralph Macchio, Karate Kid, and this well-known actor Robert De Niro. So that was the beginnings of my relationship with the cafe. 5 years later, the cafe had closed down, and when it closed down, I felt this energy that it shouldn't end. And Miguel, who was such a great man, great artist, his words should always go on and on and on. So we used to do poetry open mic at the cafe, and Miguel had all these wonderful poems, and he wrote a play, put a play around his poems, and he gave me 5 of the poems to do in the play, and I did the performances, and I've always kept that energy of Miguel's words with me for forever. And one of the poems is called Dante's Park. I'd like to recite that for you. But before that, we're gonna go do this. La 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 le 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 le. Chuka 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 chuk. Chuka 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 chuk. Chuka 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 chuk. Chuka 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 chuk. Beautiful, clear July light. Late afternoon clarity, sitting and waiting for Marie Laveau and Cinderella. Sitting in the center of the biggest neon layout the world has ever seen. July light in Manhattan. July heat, gently self-tempered. July get down, boogie, oogie, oogie. Get down, boogie, oogie, oogie. Get down, boogie, oogie, oogie. Till you just can't boogie no more. Number 1 hit of the day. Number 1 hit of the day. This clear and balanced day. This clear and balanced moment. Sitting at Dante's feet and feeling my way through purgatory, approaching a terrestrial paradise, this mellow yellowing light, this get down, boogie, oogie, oogie, get down, boogie, oogie, oogie, get down, boogie, oogie, oogie, till you just can't boogie no more. Miguel Algarín, Dante's Park. And this poem was written by Miguel when he used to go to Lincoln Center, and he used to sit right outside of Lincoln Center before going in to check out the ballet. And the park that he used to sit in was Dante's Park, and you see this wonderful statue of Dante, and that was the impetus for the poem. Again, this is one of our great poets. I mean, I just recently looked at a videotape that I created around Miguel's birthday again, celebrating the man and his words. And it was a play, an evening at the Nuyorican Poets Café. We did nothing but Miguel Algarín's words. And we had all these wonderful people that came up, and from his different books of poetry, they were reading his words. We had one guy came up to the backstage, and he came over to me and said, "Hey man, I'm a rapper. I want to do a rap." And I said, "Is it Miguel's rap?" No, it's not Miguel's rap. It's my own rap. I said, "No, we're only doing Miguel's poetry tonight." He said, "Okay, but I want to do this rap." I said, "No, I'm sorry, brother, we can't do it." And then I realized after the brother left, his name was Fat Joe. So, but again, we were doing Miguel's words and with Miguel's words only. So it was a wonderful night of celebrating. I've always wanted, always, and I will always continue to celebrate the words of Miguel Algarín. It's very important to me because as he founded me and founded so many and mentored so many other people at the Nuyorican Poets Café, we need not let his legacy die out. You know, there's been so many poets and people that have come along that people, you know, they don't talk about them anymore. You know, they just float away. You know, and it's not going to happen for Miguel as long as I live, because I really love the man very much, and I admire him for what he did, not only for myself, but for so many others in poetry and theater. And speaking of theater, Miguel was the producer of the and dramaturg of the Nuyorican Poets Café for some of the greatest theater back in the 90s when we were winning Black theater's most prestigious awards like the Adelco Awards for the production of the year for Pepe Carrillo's Shango de Ima, Samuel Hart's Don't Explain, and Wesley Brown's Life During Wartime. With the earlier two, Shango de Ima and Don't Explain, rolling the dice for the lucky 7-11. Shango was nominated for 11 Adelco Awards and won all 11 awards. And then comes along Don't Explain by Samuel Hobbs that was nominated for 7 Adelco Awards and won all 7 Adelco Awards, springboarding the earlier career for the two-time Emmy Award-winning actor from the hit TV show This Is Us, Mr. Ron Cephas Jones. And one year together, Miguel and myself, we were at the Obie Awards and we received the Obie Grant for Excellence in Theater. Had a magnificent 1990 theater season. Miguel was also the recipient of the Larry Leon Hamlin Producer of the Year Award at the National Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. An award for winning so many critically acclaimed theater productions that he put together. You know, there was one play that we did, Shango de Ima, one of the most celebrated drama critics in New York, Clyde Barnes, came to, and he gave us a great review after dancing in the aisles at the Nuyorican Poets Café. It was magnificent to see this Clyde, one of the staunch critics of theater, dancing, you know, to the Latin beat at the Nuyorican Poets Café. Miguel also was the producer and had these friends, these very special friends. They weren't just, you know, just regular playwrights. They were poets who wrote plays, and they were great people. Like one of the best in my book is Ishmael Reed. Ishmael Reed, well, I'm so glad he introduced me to Ishmael Reed because it's been a love fest ever since, and I've directed so many plays by Ishmael Reed. I think it's about 8 plays by Ishmael over the years, and then there's plays by Amiri Baraka. I've directed 6 plays by Amiri Baraka, Pedro Pietri, Sekou Sundiata, Wesley Brown, Miguel Piñero, of course, Lois Elaine Griffith, Carl Hancock Rux, and Ronaldo Pavode. Miguel brought all this energy of all these great writers to his house, and it was so well received. Some people don't realize that didn't start in the 70s for Miguel, the late 70s or 80s for Miguel with theater. It goes back to 1969 and 6 to 73 with El Puerto Rican Playwrights. Him and his buddy Ray Barry put together that group, and they did plays like Sideshow and Apartment 6D. Now, it would be wonderful just to do these plays, but you know, when they write a film about someone like Miguel Piñero and they have Miguel Algarín in the play, in the film also, and Giancarlo Esposito played a part of Miguel Algarín, the great Giancarlo Esposito played a part of Miguel Algarín. It really meant so much, and we're so very blessed to have Miguel as a producer of theater and one of the ones that made theater happen at the Nuyorican Poets Café, not only at the cafe, but throughout the country, because we toured our plays all over the place. And yours truly was his director. And when I introduce him, I always say, this is my producer, and we're partners in this passion of crime that we call theater, and love him so very dearly, and will truly miss him, but we'll celebrate him forever. And I'm so glad you guys at the Before Columbus Foundation, you're the second group that came aboard and have done this, and I thank you so very much. So with that said, it's time for the man that's, that's my partner now too. We have a passion for, he brings the plays, and no matter what play he brings to the Nuyorican Poets Café, I know it's going to be a winner. We just did the Haunting of Lynn, Manuel, Miranda, and it received numerous reviews throughout the world. And if anybody is in charge of telling the truth about what's happening in this country and in this world, it's Ishmael Reed, the great Ishmael Reed. Let's have it for him.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm mute myself. What? I got a
No,
thing.
Yes.
I hear you slightly.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me, okay. First of all, Rome, thank you for the great introduction. And I got to leave early. I got a deadline. I'm doing a huge piece on the Continental Army, 1776, which is made up of Blacks, freemen, immigrants, Jews, slaves, and Native Americans. So without a multicultural army, these clowns couldn't play white nationalists over the weekends in their Winnebagos or wherever they do their mischief. We just want to make that point, that it was a multicultural army that allowed these clowns to raid the Capitol with their cell phones and their text messages and their Holiday Inn rooms where they went back and sampled chocolate mints under the pillow and hung out in a bar and celebrated their triumph of pursuing two unarmed women. So the title of this work is called January 6th Ain't Got Nothing to Do with 1776. Now, also want to talk about my book, just mention it. It's called, what? Got to get the title. Why the Black Hole Sings the Blues. Okay? And I don't know if you read the latest news from astrophysics, but they found another universe. Okay? Why the Black Hole Sings Blues. And it's got me on the cover in the Swiss Alps, where I stayed at Nietzsche's house for a week and found out that the Superman was a mama's boy who had gastrointestinal issues. So he's a Superman too, but I guess he didn't live long enough to raid the Capitol. Okay, now, if it were not for Miguel and Rome, I would never get a play done in this country. It's easier for me to get a play done in China, in Hunan a few years ago, directed by Carla Blanc, all Chinese cast, speaking long English monologues in perfect English, Baden-Baden, and places like that than in the United States. I don't have a patron like Jill Biden, okay? So a lot of my plays have been done at the Nuyorican Poets Café, and they were green-lighted by Miguel, and we had a great director like Rome, who reminds me of all these bebop musicians in the 40s who played on pawn shop instruments. You can hear them all, they're all shrilly. He could take anything and make an art form out of it. And he did a whole gospel, we call it a gospel, an opera on that stage there at the Nuyorican. And the latest play, of course, is The Haunting of Lynn, Manuel, Miranda, which was universally condemned by these people from Harvard and Yale who are educated to be Europeans. I call them amateur Europeans who know very little about American history. And so they must have been shocked when the Schuyler historic site said, yeah, he was a slave trader. And they produced the receipts where he sold slaves. And the young poet, the inaugural poet, she said that she loved Hamilton and listened to Hamilton while she was writing her poem. So maybe I'll send her a copy of the book. It's got Rome's picture in there, and it's got our cast. And there again, we did something on a dime, thanks to Rome Neal. Now, when I arrived in New York in 1962, almost 60 years ago, there was only room for one Puerto Rican and one Black poet below 14th Street. I think it was Frank Lima. They worked him to death. They had their one token there. He's a good writer. But when I left in New York in the 1967s, because if I had remained in New York, I would have been murdered by an overdose of affection. So I had to get out of New York. And the Nuyorican poetry scene was emerging, and the Umber Magazine workshop was planting the seeds for the Black Arts explosion, which, after being dismissed as an annoyance, has become the establishment. Matter of fact, I just got the FBI report of Black Arts. You got to read it. It has more details about Black Arts than any scholar, any book I've read, from the beginning to the end. At the end, it says, I guess they've abandoned the place. I don't see anybody. From the beginning to the end, the FBI report. So Black Arts. Now, Black Arts is the canon, just like Nuyorican Poets Café is the canon. And I know Black Arts is the canon because Henry Louis Gates, who's been denouncing it for decades, is backing it. So must be some money in it. So the independent, self-reliant writers, Black and Puerto Rican, and among them, the Nuyorican among them, Nancy Mercado, who was a pioneer. And that's amazing because we were really misogynists. I've been educated. I've tried to change. So it's amazing that women were part of Black arts in the Nuyorican movement. So this self-reliance brought an end to a kind of colonial literary regime, which has been entrenched for 100 years. And one of their assignments was to select which handful of natives would succeed and which were troublemakers to be shunned. We sided with the troublemakers. Miguel Algarín was a leader in a coalition of Black and Nuyorican writers who got weary of others defining them and decided to define themselves. And Nancy's gotten many honors, but I think her essay in our new book that Carl and I put together called Bigotry on Broadway, I think that's going to win a prize because she's boy, I'm telling you. Leonard Bernstein is crying wherever he went. I think I know where he went. Because she takes down the West Side Story. And she says at the end, when do we get to write our West Side Story? That's the challenge. When do we get to assert ourselves? You know, George Bernard Shaw said, if you do not write your own stories, others will write them for you and they will vulgarize and degrade you. So you look at Hollywood and Broadway, the way we're presented, we're really being degraded. So the Nuyorican Poets Café is known as a center for slam poetry. A number of playwrights, including Wesley Brown, Amiri Baraka, Miguel Piñero, Pedro Pietri, and others, have had their plays produced at the Nuyorican Poets Café. They didn't have to be modified to please investors. You know how that works. You know, they'll take a play and you wouldn't recognize it by the time they finish with it. They even did this to the great August Wilson, changed his endings. He used to call me up and complain, you know, because they wanted to appease or they want to cater to what Lloyd Richards, his director, called the plastic crowd, the plastic card crowd. So they have to be modified in order to please uptown audiences, cater to the bottom line. We didn't have to do that. I mean, some of the plays, I remember Rome, some of the performances we did, maybe 2 people show up. You never knew how many people who would fill the seats at the Nuyorican, because the bottom line was not the objective. Okay. I've got to mention Rome Neal's Banana Pudding Jazz Series, one of the few places that's keeping jazz alive. Jazz is a dying art form. You know, somebody like Sonny Rollins gets more, sells more records and albums in Japan than he does here. When you go to Europe, jazz musicians who can't get gigs here are like household names. Middle-class people know, you know, jazz at other places. So Rome is keeping jazz alive. He even allowed me to make a fool of myself playing the piano. Now, with this COVID thing, I mean, it's getting worse. You know that, Rome. With COVID, the gigs are really drying up and people are hurting. And the same thing is happening to blues out here, where the Oakland blues is becoming extinct. If you read my article about it in Alta Magazine, I wrote a piece about it. So Miguel provided us with a space where we could do our thing, no matter how the box office looked. In fact, some nights, as I said, only a few people would show up. Miguel will be missed. He was one of a kind, and he also knew the location of some of New York's best restaurants. And I enjoyed myself with him in those restaurants. We had a great time. Now, I want to introduce Nancy Mercado, who's a legend in the New York scene and the national scene, and I might say the international scene. She was named one of 200 living individuals who best embody the work and spirit of Frederick Douglass on the bicentennial of his birthday by the Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives and Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center at American University. She is the recipient of the 2017 American Book Award for Lifetime Achievement, although she's still a young person. That's quite an accomplishment. She's the editor of the first Nuyorican Women's Writers Anthology published in Voices magazine of the Center for Puerto Rican Studies, Hunter College. She is guest curator for the Museum of American Poetics, and she has been featured on National Public Radio's The Talk of the Nation and on PBS's NewsHour special, America Remembers 9/11, and is the author of It Concerns the Madness, and is the editor of The World Were Mine, a young adult anthology. She holds a doctoral degree in English literature, and her website is nancy-mercado.com. And here's another story that we like. You know, a lot of the people that we grew up with were as talented as we were. I'm one of the few tokens who admits he's a token. We founded the Before Columbus Foundation. They wrote in the New York Times that here I was, I'd gotten all these establishment honors and stuff. What was wrong with that? I said, well, there are other people who can write as well as I write. I've always known that. Amiri Baraka didn't allow himself to be no token. He's supposed to be the next Baldwin. He's supposed to be the next token. And he wrote, there were others before me. Okay? So before Columbus Foundation, if they'd done anything under the direction of Justin and Wajahat, who worked tirelessly to keep this organization going, they would still be imposing tokens on us. And we have caused a revolution because we're the ones who call the shots. We're the ones who call the shots. So I want to introduce Nancy Mercado, who will make her witness about Miguel Algarín. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. I just unmuted myself. So Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Ishmael. And what can I say? Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me and for thinking of me for this. This is a wonderful program and so well deserved, you know. I met Miguel when I was about maybe 19, and that was in 1979. I was a student at Rutgers, and that's where he was teaching. And just as I was beginning my second year there, he was taking on the reins of being the chairperson for the Puerto Rican Studies Department. And I had the privilege and the fortune to be able to take classes with him there. And that's where I met him, and he introduced me to everybody, you know, because when his class, he would have obviously he would have speakers come in, and that's when I met everyone: Miguel Piñero, Sandra Maria Esteves, Pedro Pietri, Tato Laviera, you name them, all of the figures from the Nuyorican Poets Café and the surrounding areas. And also, as I kept my relationship with him, because I knew I saw the importance of who he was and I wanted to learn as much as I could from him. As the years passed, I got to meet others like Ishmael Reed and Victor Hernandez Cruz and Amir Baraka, and they all became good friends, thank goodness. And of course, Allen Ginsberg, I did also meet, and before he passed. And so Miguel was a really great influence in my artistic life and in my life, my personal life. He was a great friend, a lifelong friend. And he was he was brilliant. He was a brilliant person. He was great because he was able to straddle. He was able to straddle both worlds, you know, the academic world and the street, you know, the street world. Because, you know, at the cafe you had a lot of writers and artists that they would hang out in the street, and, you know, like Miguel Piñero, who became a great playwright and writer in his own right. And he was honestly was a drug addict, and he was in the streets, and he Miguel provided a place for those luminaries who other people would have discarded immediately. He provided a place, and also provided a place for the academic crowd, and for the people who already had all the accolades and who were accepted by society, you know. So he was brilliant in doing that, because that gave, like I say, it gave a home for those different factions to come together and to mix together. And that created its own world, you know, its own unique world, and its own as it pertains to the use of language. It's like how we were able to mix English and Spanish when we first came to the United States, or when we were born here. Like, I'm first generation Puerto Rican born here. So, you know, we were able to, instead of letting a lot of us, or most of us, I would say, instead of allowing the place to kill us, we were able to take it and use it, you know, and create something new, create a new language, create new artistic movements. And it was, Miguel did that. And so I was there since I never left since 78. I mean, I wasn't every night at the cafe, but I was hanging out with him when he was at home or when he was at his sister's house. When the cafe closed, I spent most of that time with him in conversations, and we would go to the ballet, and I went with him many times to that statue, that Dante statue that Rome talked about. And he introduced me to a whole world of artists, and a classical world also. He was very adept in terms of the classics. His mother and his father loved opera, so he was very adept at opera, and his favorite ballet group was the New York City Ballet. He would always tell me that the American ballet was no good, that the good group was the New York City Ballet. If you're gonna go see ballet, go see them. Don't go see the American ballet when they come. Don't do that. And so he had his preferences, and he was a dynamo. What can I say? I mean, he taught me a great amount of life, things about life too. Those restaurants that Ishmael talked about, he took me to probably all of them in the 40 years or whatever that we knew each other. We got, during the early time 80s, we went to the discos, to dance. We did as much as we could get done. We did. And Miguel, he was amazing because he could communicate and fight with whoever. It could be the Puerto Rican community on the island, or it could be the Puerto Rican community in New York, or it could be the Caucasian, elite, of New York, or it could be, the Black nationalists. It didn't matter. Like, Miguel could get into any world, and make something of it and survive and thrive, there. I mean, Amiri Baraka and him, I remember when they got into a vicious argument I think it was on a panel that they were on at the St. Mark's Poetry Project, and they got into a vicious fight, and I actually got scared. I said, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen?" Well, nothing. They were great friends, so they got into a terrible fight. It had to do with politics, and then afterwards everybody went out for drinks, so Miguel was he was incredible. He taught me all of this stuff, and when he was at Cardinal Cook, this was towards the end his last years, I always went to see him, and there were people who wanted to go see him, and they would contact me, and I would take them there to see him, and he was always really happy to see everybody. Miguel was always, he was still writing, he was reading, he had a bunch of books that he was reading. When he was there, he never lost his intelligence or his memory or anything like that. Miguel was there till really the end. And sorry to say that, because of COVID, we were not able to be with him, unfortunately, when he passed, and we were not able to see him off afterwards either. So that was heartbreaking, but we are going to keep his memory alive. That's going to happen, that's really something that's one of my goals now in life. So, I'll look forward to questions. If anybody has questions to ask me, and I'm writing a piece now that I'm praying that I finish it on time, that is for the Poetry Foundation about Miguel. So, look for that in the coming, I guess in the coming months, they'll publish it online. that's what I could say. And then we're also working, there's a committee, and we're also working, we did a huge tribute to Miguel that's actually like 6.5 or 7 hours long, and it's online, and you could access it, you could see it. If you go to the Nuyorican Poets Café website, it should be up on their site. And what other,
It's also up on YouTube.
A Gathering of the Tribes also has it up on their site. And there's several other organizations that have it up. And also Facebook. If you go to Facebook, you'll find that if you look for those organizations, they all streamed it simultaneously and recorded it. So we're working on other programs that we're going to be doing. That's just the first one of many that we're that we hope to organize, and you'll hear about those coming up. So I wanted to now, I guess, introduce a wonderful visual artist. Let me see what happened to her. I have to get her. Nitza Tufiño, who knew Miguel and knew about, was familiar with Miguel's also artistic, visual artistic preferences. And because Miguel he was huge on visual art. He knew his stuff. He knew about, Miguel knew about Latin American literature. Miguel knew about literature from Spain. He spoke about, I think, 5 languages: English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and I believe German, if I'm not mistaken. So Miguel was really brilliant. So he loved visual art, and of course knew about music and about cuisine. When I first met him and went to visit him right after I graduated in '82, went to visit him in New York, and the first thing that I saw was a magazine of one of these French cuisine magazines he used to read. So he was up on everything, man. He was amazing. But Nitza Tufiño knew him really well, and I'm so happy that she's here, and it's an honor to really have her. She has a BFA and an MA degrees, and I'll read you a little bit of her biography here. Her career as a muralist and public artist flourished and was commissioned by educational institutions and governmental agencies that include the 2 subway train stations within the Metropolitan Transit Authority. Nitza was the designer of 2 subway stations in New York City, which is no small feat. And I believe she's working on her 3rd commission for the city of New York. Those are huge projects, and it's really an amazing thing to have a Puerto Rican women artists create those subway stations. It's amazing, let me see. She also had, aside from the Metropolitan Transit Authority, who funded and commissioned her, the Health and Hospitals Corporation, both from New York, LaGuardia Community College in New York, Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, the Hospital for Special Care in New Britain, Connecticut, also sponsored some of her great works. And as a resident artist teaching art and design at the Central Connecticut State University, she developed and created the first murals public art program. She has been the recipient of many awards throughout her 4 decades as an artist that include the Donald G. Sullivan Award from the Department of Urban Planning, Hunter College, the Mid-Atlantic Endowment for the Arts Regional Award, and the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, the New York Foundation for the Arts Artist Fellowship, the Puerto Rican League Defense and Education Fund for Outstanding Contribution to the Arts Award in conjunction with with Mayor David Dinkins of New York City's Council's Excellence in Arts Award, given by Council President Andrew Stein at that time, and the Manhattan Borough President's Excellence and Outstanding Achievement Award, given by Manhattan Borough President Ruth Messenger at that time, among others. Nitza has done a great deal of work. She was also I believe, the co-founder of one of the founders of El Museo del Barrio, the first Latino Puerto Rican museum here in the United States, and also co-founder of El Taller Boricua, that's a print shop and an artist center in its own right. So without further ado, Nitza Tufiño. Unmute yourself.
Okay. Nancy, thank you so much for that introduction. I love you. Thank you for having me in this panel talking about the great person and his humanity Miguel had as a person. And I was a fan of his word, yours and all these people that are here, the poets. And he loved also the arts. He was a very big fan of my work and of my father's work also, Rafael Tufiño. I met Miguel in the 1969. I was coming back from Mexico from school, and that was the time of the young lords in El Barrio. I lived there with my mother. Then later on, I moved to the Lower East Side. And we founded El Taller Boricua and all that. And I met Pedro Pietri. And then when I moved to the Lower East Side, I met Miguel when he was on 6th Street in his apartment. And he was with all the poets that used to be in his house. Miguel Piñero, Loki Cienfuego, all the Goya, Tito Goya. So it was great. It was fantastic. The creation of the Nuyorican Café is a fantastic, pivotal, titanic thing that really Miguel did for all the poets and to advance literature for with the minorities, people of color. And what is amazing also, that I want to tell you this little story, that he was invited with Miguel many times during the 70s to go to Puerto Rico to share with literature over there in the university and talk about the movement, and his poetry, and also Miguel. And they didn't speak in Spanish. Most of his stuff was in English, but they had that sense of the culture, because you have Miguel Piñero talking about the Cuchifrito love affairs and Tucutum, Miguel stuff. And they over there, they were not very welcome, you know what I'm saying? Because, they're not doing it in Spanish, so that's not really part of the culture, and although it has a sense of the heart and all of that. And I remember that they were at the airport, and there's a custom when you're in the airport and you see somebody from Puerto Rico, or, somewhere you hear them talking in Spanish, or from where are you? And they go, I'm Puerto Rican. No, but I'm from Caguas or Rio Piedras or San Juan and all of that. And Miguel looked at them and he said, no, I am Nuyorican. So there you have the word Nuyorican, where it comes from. And then later on, after that happened, that people caught on to it, because even Jaime Carrero, who was he wrote in Spanish and in English, and he was very big in Puerto Rico. He was sent here to study to the United States. Then later on, he coining it and saying Nuyorican. Then other things started getting into the mix about our culture and our language, all those wonderful things, and the plays, and bringing young people in to create that change from from us to the next ones that are going to come and what they're doing and mentoring them and bringing them in and all of that, which was wonderful. Another wonderful thing that Miguel, because we lived in the Lower East Side, and also Bimbo also lived in the Lower East Side, so we used to see each other all the time. When Bimbo did the poem of Loisaida, we were tying that it was always Alpha. Oh, I'm going to Alphabet City. I'm going to Alphabet City. And got tired of that. And Bimbo had written a great poem about Loisaida. It's not Loisa, a place in Puerto Rico. He just named it and coined it, Loisaida. And we decided through the community planning board, through Loisaida Economic Development, who was directed by Dora Collazo, we said, okay, let's name Loisaida, the Lower East Side, Loisaida. And we fought for that, and we did it. Avenue C became Loisaida. So it goes to show you that not only in his literature and his humanity, he was for the people, and he wanted to gather and name things, like the naming of the street for Pedro Pietri on Avenue B and 3rd Street. I think we need to name a street for Miguel, maybe Avenue C in the Lower East Side. So all these different things, you know, to unite our people and the artist community. And it doesn't matter where you come from, whatever. It depends on what you're creative, on what you want to do. And he embracing people. And the cafe, you know, bringing in not only the word and the literature, the music. Rey Barreto used to be there all the time. Most of the people that play with Tito Puente, a lot of jazz players used to go to the cafe. I used to be in the cafe every Thursday night, and I used to go see most of the poetry and stuff like that when it happened, and listening to the young people. And people wanted to know what was happening at the cafe. So a lot of people that were very, very well known, they wanted to come in, but they didn't know how to get to the Lower East Side because they were scared. You know what I mean? I know Jennifer Lopez and Mark Anthony also went to the Nuyorican Poets Café. John Kennedy, he was at the cafe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, incognito, and they felt comfortable. These people will come in. You know what I'm saying? So the cafe had that to bring everybody together. It doesn't matter what class or what situation you were in. You know what I mean? Miguel had that greatness about himself. And he transpired that to other people to do the same thing. He was a great mentor in that sense. And I loved him because he loved what I did as an artist, and I love his poetry and all of that. I love Pedro also, and Miguel, you know, Miguel Piñero, and all the wonderful, even Guzman, you know, we came from there when they did Miami Vice and all of that, all the different actors also that made it out there into Hollywood. That all came from Loisaida, from the Lower East Side, from the cafe. And that was because of Miguel's spirit. His spirit brought this about because he opened and he said, and he found a venue. Okay, you can't be in my house all the time because I got to also go teach tomorrow. I got to get up early. So we'll find a place and we will do this, you know. But it's the sign of the times also. So what is going to be the sign time? We can't forget him. We have to use him as a template for other people to do new things and to continue what he was doing and change it, you know, and come up with young people to come up with new stuff, new things, you know what I mean, in terms of the culture. And to remember, you know, Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, you know, the woman colored, you know, colored woman, you know, opening the doors, you know, uniting also with the men, the children, the situation in the border. You know, this country was made by immigrants. They're the workers that go from the morning to the afternoon to work to make this country. You know what I mean? In the pandemic, that's what we have seen. If it wasn't for them that you know, they ride the trucks, they go to the supermarkets and all of those things, the medical situation, you know, the doctors, the nurses, all these people, I don't know where we would have been. You know what I mean? Like, we have to, this pandemic has taught us that we should love each other. We should spread more love instead than hate. Even though we know as a people that the other side doesn't love us, but it doesn't matter. We love them. You know, we love them, and we are going to do whatever we have to do to continue in our plight, to make our history stick, for our young people to know our history, and to make it better and better, and to create housing, health, and all of those things, and to create more plays that talk about those things. And it doesn't matter what country you come from. The pandemic has showed us that we are part of the universe, where a globe is the earth. It's no longer, well, I'm from America, I'm from France, Italy. No, we're human beings and we're in the globe. So I want to thank you all very much for inviting me and saying these few words for Miguel. Thank you.
You're muted, Justin.
Oh, thank you so much, Nitza, for participating in this evening in our celebration of Miguel Algarín. Nancy Mercado, again, thank you for being so generous with your time. I want to extend also my thanks to Ishmael Reed and Rome Neal, Wajahat Ali. And again, encourage all of you, as Nitza so eloquently encouraged us, to revive and resuscitate and bring further her of life in the vision of Miguel Algarín, the Nuyorican Poets Café, the Before Columbus Foundation. I want to thank my friends at the San Francisco Public Library for their assistance in helping to get this program onto the internet and YouTube Live, and thank all of you for joining us this evening. I would encourage everyone to support the Before Columbus Foundation. Again, you can find us on the internet at beforecolumbusfoundation.com. And I'll close this evening's program with a poem from Miguel. My proposal is that. My proposal is that I want to live with you. Enjoy first, then procreate. Children for the new century, leaving clues and roots, a nettling that repels and receives what was, converting it into what is. I want to unite bodies, sewing space for two, tying a knot. Miguel Algarín, today and forever. Thank you all so much. Nitza, I'll return that to you.
Okay. I'll take it. Thank you, everybody, for coming
Thank
tonight
you.
on a
Thank you.
Saturday night. And yes, everybody can unmute if they want, and
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for having
Thank
this,
you.
and it's good. It's always good to connect with the folks.
Thank you, Rome.
Nancy,
Thank you.
and again Ishmael and Wajahat, and then you also, you know, Miguel. Like we said, his legacy is intact, and we just got to keep the word out. And thank you so very much.
thank you, everyone.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you,
everybody.
everybody. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nitza.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
good to see you, Rashida.
Rashida.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you, Rome.
Thank you for being
You
here.
too.
Oh,
Thank you.
Rashida.
Thank you, Nitza.
Oh, I gotta see you sometime, Rashida.
You do. I had my vaccination today.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Great. That's great.
Yeah. But anything that I can do to help, with the Nuyorican and with before Columbus, because I think that those two, you now are probably the last lingering groups that connect our generation, Miguel, Ishmael, all of us. You're probably the last two places that connect Umbra and the Black Arts movement. I just wanted to say this one funny story about Miguel. Nancy, you were talking about how he straddled these two worlds of the academic, quote, elite, and the street, quote, not so elite. One time we were I don't know, there was something, some conference or something, and Miguel and I were walking along with somebody else, and somebody was making a comment about all of these Ricans and not enough Black folks, and Miguel just turned in one balletic movement, hand on his hip, as camp as you want, and snaps him and says, "Yo soy un africano." I mean, and he just, and the man was standing with his mouth open. I can't remember, even if I did, I wouldn't want to identify him, but he had his identity was very embracing and fluid, and he didn't let people play one off the other. I really, really appreciate that. And I think now that young people, in their quest for searching for identities, this whole multiracial, multi-this, multi-that, buy this, buy that, just be a plain, ordinary human being, doing the best you can. When you cut, the blood doesn't say, okay, 4 drops that just went out. That was my great-grandmother who was half Indian, half this, half that. And then the 8 drops over there, that's my father and his Italian great-grandfather and his French great-great-grand. It's your blood that's going out. You know? I mean, I'm not saying that you should not be proud and celebrate some sense of an identity, but I'm saying that the way in which people like Miguel were so integrated, that's a really good word for it. He was totally integrated.
Otherwise you get diluted, and you become nothing, and you can't do that. You can't do that.
Diluted because you're so busy, acknowledging every iota. What if you didn't have an Italian father, but somebody said you did? So then what? Whoops, well, maybe I'll have to find something. No. Just as Langston used to, just be simple. Because there's profundity in that. Profundity in that. So I really want to encourage you, Nancy, and all of you. I mean, I help, but I mean, you're younger than me. I really want to encourage you to keep doing this work, because it's important to have a place where you can just breathe and not have to think about whether you dotted every single I or crossed every T, but that people understand the spirit of and the integrity of your work. So keep on going.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Soon, inshallah, soon. Okay.
Thank
Nancy,
you.
no problem.
Thank you, Rashida.
Thank
look
you.
like